Welcome. Ever get an exam question back and wonder, what exactly did they want from me? Well, today we're going to pull back that curtain. We're taking a real GCSE physics question and decoding it with the official mark scheme to see how you can lock in every single point. Okay, so here's our focus for today. This is question 02 from the June 2022 AQA higher tier paper. It's all about the refraction of light. You can see they give you a table of results right from the start, showing what happens to the angle of refraction when you change the angle of incidence. So how do you get every single mark here? That's what we're here to figure out. We're going to tackle this piece by piece, and we're going to use the examiner's own playbook, the mark scheme, to unlock all the points. All right, let's get into it. Okay, right out of the gate, we've got the big one, a 6-mark question. These can be pretty intimidating, right? It's asking you to lay out the whole method, how the student actually got the results in that table. This is a huge test of how clearly you can explain a scientific process. Now, check this out. This is what's so important to understand. They don't just give you a mark for every correct thing you say. No, it's marked in levels. You can see it in this table. To get into that top tier, level 3 for 5 or 6 marks, it's not enough to just list some steps. Your whole method has to be logical, it has to be in the right order, and it has to be something that would actually work in a lab. It's all about the quality of your whole answer, not just ticking boxes. So, what does a top-level answer actually look like? Well, think of it like a recipe. The mark scheme gives us the indicative content. These are the key ingredients. You've got to talk about placing the glass block on paper, drawing around it, shining a light ray from a ray box, then marking where the ray goes in and comes out. And here's the crucial part. You have to mention drawing the normal at 90 degrees. Why? Because you can't measure the angles without it. Then you measure your angle of incidence and refraction with a protractor, and of course you repeat the whole thing for different angles to get all your data. All right, let's move on. The next part, Question 02.2, is where they check if you can handle that data. It's all about graphing, a classic science skill they love to test. So, they give you a head start. Here's the graph with a few points already plotted for you. Your job is to finish it using the data from the table we saw earlier. And there are 4 marks available here, but you have to know exactly what they're giving marks for. So, how do we bag all 4 of those marks? The trick is to see it's not one big task, it's actually 3 small separate jobs. First, you get a mark for labeling the axes. Yep, just for the labels. Then you get 2 whole marks for plotting the points accurately. And finally, 1 more mark for drawing a good line of best fit. Let's look at each one. Okay, step 1. This is probably the easiest mark you'll get. You just have to label the axes, but you have to be precise. The mark scheme says the x-axis is angle of incidence in degrees, and the y-axis is angle of refraction in degrees. Don't forget the units. You do that, boom, 1 mark in the bag. All right, next up, and this one's a big deal. It's worth 2 marks. Plotting the points. The examiner is looking for accuracy here. They're not messing around. The mark scheme gives you a tiny bit of wiggle room, half a small square, so you really have to be careful and precise to get both of those marks. And for the final mark, number 4, you need to draw your line of best fit. Now, look at the points. What do you see? They're not in a straight line, are they? They form a curve. So your line has to be a nice, smooth curve that shows the trend. A ruler is your enemy here. Draw a straight line and you'll lose that mark for sure. Okay, time to switch gears. The question now pivots from refraction to reflection. This part is all about finishing a ray diagram for a simple, plain mirror. So here's what you start with. A line for the mirror and another line for the incident ray hitting it. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to add 2 more things to this diagram to get 2 marks, 1 mark for each part. And the mark scheme couldn't be clearer about this. For your first mark, you have to draw the normal. Remember, that's the line you draw at a perfect 90-degree angle to the mirror, starting right where the light ray hits. For the second mark, you draw the reflected ray. And the golden rule here is the law of reflection. The angle of incidence must equal the angle of reflection. You gotta show that. Okay, we're on the home stretch. For the very last part of this question, you need to become a critic. You've got to evaluate 2 different ways of doing an experiment and explain why one is better than the other. And here they are. Method A is pretty clever. It uses a laser and has the protractor actually drawn on the paper. Method B is a bit more traditional with a ray box and a separate protractor that you have to hold in place. The question is, why is method A better? you need to give 2 good reasons. So, what's the examiner looking for? Well, the mark scheme gives a few options, and you just need to pick 2. It all comes down to accuracy. Think about it. In Method A, the protractor is already on the paper, so you don't have to line it up or move the mirror, which means you're much more likely to get the angle right. Plus, Method A uses a laser. A laser beam is super narrow and doesn't spread out, so it's way easier to see exactly where the middle of the ray is. Okay, so we've just done a complete teardown of one single question. But what can we learn from this? What's the big takeaway? What are the skills the examiner is really looking for here? Really, it comes down to these 4 things. It's not just about what you know, it's about what you can do. First, can you lay out a logical method, step by step? Second, can you handle data accurately, plotting points, drawing lines? Third, can you apply the rules of physics to a diagram with precision? And finally, can you look at 2 methods and explain why one is better? Master these, and you're set for any question about practicals. The moment you start to see why marks are given, you start to think like an examiner, and that's the secret. You can use this exact same process on any exam question you come across. So the real question is, which one are you going to decode next?